Hello and welcome to another Paper Street Pictures Roundtable. Today we are going to be talking about the movie Nope, the new Jordan Peele film, and we are joined by some very special guests. Joining us is Shannon McGrew. Shannon is a Tomato Meter approved critic and member of the Hollywood Critics Association and the founder and co-owner of genre news and review site Nightmarish Conjurings. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you.
We also have Sarah Stubbs with us today. Sarah is a horror movie reviewer, food blogger, in fact, one half of the Geeks Who Eat, and the co-host of the Final Girls Feast podcast, as well as the unofficial president of the Scare Package fan club. Welcome, Sarah. And last but not least, we have Zena Dixon. Zena is also a horror movie blogger and reviewer, the co-host of the Bloody Disgusting podcast alongside Meg Navarro, and the woman behind the Real Queen of Horror YouTube channel. Welcome, Zena. Let's get started. I'm assuming you've all seen Nope.
Yeah. Wait, we were supposed to watch Nope?
Dang it!
That was you have one job. You have one job.
I'll see you all later.
But yeah, we all saw Nope. I have no idea what y'all thought of it, so I thought I'd just kind of start off and let you know what I think. I saw it last Thursday. The day of release at like a 4:00 screening, and I absolutely loved it. I was a fan really from the very beginning. I love Jordan Peele. I love his other films. I thought Nope was fantastic. I was completely on board with all of it. The third act felt a little clunky to me, but there were some things that I thought I missed the first time around, so I went and saw it again, and then the third act played much better. So I think that it's a masterpiece. I think it's great. Yeah, I loved it. So what did y'all think?
Okay. I'll go. I saw it a few weeks ago, and I liked it a lot when I saw it. I also thought the third act was clunky. But I loved it. I thought it was grand. I thought it was operatic. I thought it was just something that we hadn't seen really before in such a unique type of way. And then I went and saw it last night, and all my questions were answered, and I also think it's a masterpiece. You have to watch it more than once.
Yeah. I think it's a movie that has so many layers. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but yeah.
I'll go. So I actually just watched it this past Saturday. I was going to go earlier, but then my husband wanted to go, and I'm like, why? Because, I wanted to go alone. But anyway, so I checked it out on Saturday afternoon. There was only like 2 other people in the theater, and they sat far away, which was great. Also, I was wearing this really bomb outfit. I bought a Nope shirt, and I bought these really cute like boots with fringe. Like, woo! Okay, anyway, so yeah, I agree with you all. Like, I really did enjoy it. But I'm going to be honest with you. I try to go in there with an open mind, just because, not because it's Jordan Peele, but there's been a couple of movies that I would go see and I'm like, yeah, I know I'm going to love it. And then I'm just completely let down. So with this one, I kind of avoided like trailers. When people were tweeting about how, oh, it's so good, I muted it completely because I didn't want, that to kind of like steer me in a direction. But I really did enjoy it. And the reason why is because it felt very fresh. Obviously it is like it's a sci-fi horror, but there was just something so like enticing about it. Like I forgot that it was like a 2-hour movie. Like it just completely flew by for me. I love the dialogue. I love the cinematography. I love the characters. Like you're rooting for them. You love them. You want to hang out with them, possibly borrow their clothes. I don't know. But yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot.
So I'm going to have the hot take here. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it though. For me, I'm already like not a sci-fi fan. So like for me, it was going to be a hard sell if it didn't lean into the horror aspects, which it didn't. And so for me, I was like, my husband loved it. He was like, it's so good. How could you not agree with that? And I'm just like, it felt a lot like Jaws to me. And like in my review, I even break down how like OJ's like Brody, Emerald is like Hooper, the filmmaker is Quint. Like it really broke down like Jaws for me. And I think it's a beautifully made movie. Jordan Peele is talented, hands down. He makes beautiful movies. You can't deny that. But for me, it just didn't hit as well. Like, I've liked his other two movies better than this one. And I think I do want to see it again because maybe I missed something. It was a 10 o'clock screening. I was tired. Like, maybe something just didn't click in that moment. I've had movies like that don't, like, The Witch was one of those movies for me. Like, the first time I saw it, I was like, this is the dumbest movie I've ever seen. Why? And now I love that movie. So, like, I think sometimes, like, a second viewing is absolutely necessary when you don't love a movie. Yeah. And so I think for me, that's where I need to be with this one. Like, I love the actors. Like, they're so good. And just the story for me just didn't work.
So Sarah Stubbs is going to be leaving us now.
I think that's why I think that's literally why I got asked to be here, is so that there was one person who was not like, it's a masterpiece, hands down, done.
No. Trust me.
I'm not. I wasn't like, okay, I enjoyed it. I don't know about a masterpiece, but like I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Okay, we'll get into it more like later, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think it was bad. Like, I just want to be clear about that. Like, I do not think this is a bad movie. I think it's above average for sure. For me, it was not like my best of the year type movie.
Well, for me, I was one of the odd people out with Us. You know, I was not a huge fan of Us.
I just learned that people didn't like it.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah,
I do like the movie, but I was one of those people who was like, I don't know, man. There's some things about it. So, Sarah, yeah, don't worry. Like, we like hot takes on the show.
I think that's,
find it. I was just gonna say, just find movies that people hate. Those are the ones that I'm always like, yeah, party.
Yoga Hosers.
Hell yeah! Oh my god,
I fucking hate that movie.
And I'm over here like, that was a masterpiece. And she's like, really? The Bratzies? That's what you think is good?
I only get mad at like one movie a year, and then I'm mad at that movie for the entire 12 months. And Yoga Hosers was that for that year was that movie.
Oh my god!
Anyway, we're not talking about Yoga Hosers.
Let's talk about some of the other film references, because you talked about Jaws, and I actually mentioned that to a friend when I saw it the second time. I was like, this really reminds me of Jaws, especially in the third act, the whole adventure aspect, and trying to catch this beast. Like, it had a very Jaws vibe to it, but in a Jordan Peele twist. And I thought, you know, it was really kind of clever how he sort of flipped some of those roles around. Because really, like, I can never pronounce his name, Daniel Kaluuya, or
Daniel Kaluuya.
Kaluuya. He's not the typical sort of, you know, leading man type. He's like a silent giant. He was actually very quiet in the movie. When he did speak, his lines were kind of really significant. I thought that was interesting. And, you know, I also had some other film references that I picked up. Maybe y'all can agree or not, but I saw a little bit of Signs, the M. Night Shyamalan movie in this. It had some Sign stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that scene with like when he's in the horse stall area,
mm-hmm.
and the aliens come out. Yeah. Okay, I was hella high the first time I saw it, and I almost lost my shit during that scene. Like, I feel so bad for the person next to me, because I was like, these motherfuckers are gonna come out and like, it's just gonna be so scary. And then they're the kids.
Yeah. And then also, even at certain points, the music really reminded me of Signs, the James Newton Howard score, especially during the credits. And then when they have those titles that came up that said, you know, Jean Jacket or whatever it was, there was this little glowing thing at the bottom of it. That wasn't a projector error, I don't think. Y'all saw that glowing thing at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah.
The title would come up. That was the Signs thing too, because when you watch Signs, when the titles come up, they have this like glowing, almost pulsating light coming out of it. So I thought there was some interesting stuff with Signs. I also saw a little bit of this is going to be a bit of a weird take, but okay. So E.T., the Spielberg movie, was originally going to be sort of like a dark horror movie. It was not going to be the nice family-friendly E.T. that we remember. Originally, that movie was going to be closer in tone to Poltergeist. It was about this group of aliens who are nefarious. They come down and they terrorize a group or a family on a farm. And I thought Peele, when I first heard the plot, I thought he was doing a little bit of a riff on the aborted Spielberg movie that eventually springboarded into E.T. E.T. became E.T. because he wanted to make a movie that wasn't necessarily scary. He wanted to make something about him growing up in suburban stuff. So I've always kind of wanted to see that movie. I think he made a little bit of that in War of the Worlds, and I love E.T., but I thought Peele was doing a little bit of a spin-off of that aborted Spielberg project. So that was another reference.
Totally traumatized by E.T., by the way. Like, can we just talk for a minute about that movie is traumatizing? Like,
absolutely.
That was horror in itself. Like, I don't call that a family movie. I call that a horror movie. Like, awful.
Yeah, once you get past the very creepy, weird looking aliens with making weird sounds in the dark forest, then it kind of does become a family movie. But originally, it really freaked me out.
You didn't think that it sounded kind of cute, the little alien noises? I don't know. Kind of remind me of a cooing baby. Like, oh, whose baby is that?
A cooing demon baby, yeah.
Why would you leave your baby in the woods? Like, I don't know.
I watch a lot of backwoods horror. That's not so far-fetched.
I had the exact opposite. I didn't actually think... I can see where people are coming from with their references. I think he pays homage to a lot of films, but I left that movie, and maybe because it was very early on that I saw it, but I love Jaws, never saw Jaws in that movie once. I never saw, the only thing I saw with Signs was possibly that alien moment when whatever he's doing in the horse stall. But I think a movie like that, it's easy to reference other really famous, well-known sci-fi horror films like Close Encounters, Jaws isn't sci-fi, but Signs, things of that nature. But I actually think when you look at it as a whole, it's completely unique and completely different than what we've seen from those other films. I hope I'm making sense because I'm just going to get higher. So.
No, it does. Like, I was actually going to touch on that as well. Like, I feel like when it comes to Jordan's movies, it's like, I feel like because he's such a movie fan, sometimes we can see other things in it. Like, and I agree with Shannon, like he's definitely paying homage. Yeah. So thank you. So, you know what I mean? You can definitely see that within his films. And I think that's, that's what we love. You know what I mean? And then even with that, because obviously we're going to talk about the layering of it, but it's all up to your interpretation. You know what I mean? So, but I didn't see so much, Jaws, with that one, but I've been hearing that a lot from people.
Same.
Yeah, I got a lot of Jaws out of it, but I'm also like a huge Jaws fan. Like, the Jaws franchise is one that I watch on the regular.
Okay, we're not going to talk about all the Jaws movies. There's only one Jaws.
No, I typically, I'll be honest, I skip 4. I usually just watch the first 3. Oh, I will die on the hill that Jaws 3D is a blast. Like, I love that. That was like my first favorite, actually, out of them. I saw that when I was a kid, and the whole SeaWorld thing was a total thing for me. But I really do feel that overall, Nope feels like very much an homage to Steven Spielberg's films, like, tonally overall. Like, it's got Jordan Peele's, social commentary, the layering, all of that in it. But, I mean, he even has the quote from Poltergeist of "They're here," which, right. Steven Spielberg produced. So, there's definitely a little bit of, that Spielberg, Amblin, the scoring. It's got that vibe to it, very much so, for me.
And the thing is, we all bring our own, movies are a reflection of everybody who watches them. So everybody has their own interpretation. We also bring our own movie references to it. So it doesn't necessarily mean Jordan Peele watched Jaws a bunch of times before he made the movie. But if you see Jaws in it, that just means that, it's like, there's nothing new under the sun. There's only 6 stories. There's, and it's like everybody's going to make their own version of certain stories. So you're inevitably going to see certain movies and stuff. So, it's fine. I actually even saw a little bit of Dr. Strangelove when the cinematographer gets sucked into the mouth of the beast and he's got the camera. When at the end of Dr. Strangelove, the pilot is riding the nuclear bomb with a cowboy hat and he's going, yeehaw, into the, and then it explodes. that's not a direct reference to that movie, but as a movie fan and a fan of Doctor Strangelove and Stanley Kubrick, I saw that little bit of that in that moment. So that's just, our own personal takes. So yeah.
I'm just going to
I'm
add
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm just still stuck. There's a Jaws, there's a fourth one. I didn't know. When did this happen?
Jaws the Revenge. It's the one that Michael Caine did, and he skipped the Oscars because he skipped his winning Oscar because he was making the movie. But he said this was the movie that paid for the house. He says he knows it's terrible, but it's literally, the shark roars like a lion. It's that bad. Like, this movie is not good at all. There's nothing really redeeming about this movie.
It might be one of the worst movies Dennis Quaid.
And it skips.
Oh my God.
No, that was number 3. Number 4 had, I don't even remember the actor's name. I'm like, all I can think of is Michael Caine. Right? Yeah, Jaws the Revenge is the 4th one where they're in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And they ignore Jaws 3 like it never happens.
Right.
And if you look at the marketing, they actually market it as the 3rd movie in the franchise.
Okay, well,
I didn't know that part. So.
Yeah, it's Shark Week. It's a good time to watch it if you want to revisit it, but I don't recommend it.
Sorry,
go watch The Meg instead or something. That's probably more entertaining.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit of what we were talking about earlier in terms of expectations and horror stuff, because when Nope was being advertised, at least originally, it's a new Jordan Peele movie, everybody's gonna go see it, but you didn't really know what it was. It was like you kind of assumed that it would be this straight up horror movie. And then, we got another trailer, which I tried to avoid watching, but I couldn't resist. And then we got a little bit more of the story. And then it seemed like, okay, it's not a straight up horror movie, but it's like almost like a UFO sci-fi kind of thing. And then expectations get sort of turned on their heads again when you go see it, because it ends up being almost none of those things. It's got horror moments in it. I don't look at this movie as a straight up horror movie.
Not at all.
I saw it as like an amalgamation of a lot of different genres kind of mashed into Jordan Peele's own new genre that he wanted to make. And I thought it was interesting that way because, when you talked about the aliens and he's trying to, get them on camera, and he's like, nope, and he backs up, and then turns out that they're just these kids playing around. That's Peele playing with our expectations. You know what I mean? The scenes like that.
I think too, though, horror is subjective. So some people may look at like The Silence of the Lambs as a horror movie. That's a big, point of contention for almost every single person I know. If I could never hear that again, I'd be so happy. And so I think it's kind of partly expectation, but also how you define horror. Not to get personal, don't speak to anybody in my family. So me watching that movie, it reminded me of the horror of things I went through, on top of this weird alien invasion, on top of, this Western thriller that we're watching. And I think it is different genres, but I think at the end of the day, it's kind of like, what is horror to you? And if it isn't a horror film, that's your opinion. For others, it may have just been an entire horror sci-fi film. It was a Western. I learned yesterday that at an event that I went to that took place at Sunset Ranch in the Hollywood Hills, they had a whole thing before the movie about the lesson of Black cowboys through all of film. And it made me realize that this was also like a deeply Western film. So I think it is an amalgamation of a lot of things, but I also think horror is subjective. If somebody's raining blood down a house, I'm not sitting there being like, this is a family-friendly movie. Like clawing their way through inside the whatever it is. I think in the aliens, I think it's all there, but it's just what you take from it.
Yeah. If you're the Manson family, that's a family-friendly movie. But
I think what a lot of it is, though, is that if you look at Get Out and Us, those lean way more into horror than any other kind of subgenre of film, or genre rather, of film. Whereas this one, the horror is probably not at all what it really leans into. It has horror elements, but I would say, like you were just saying, it has more of a Western storyline. Like the way the story plays out feels more like a Western. And it happens to also be sci-fi because of aliens. But it doesn't lean into horror the same way that his other two films do.
So funny. I had the complete opposite.
Well, I agree with Shannon. Like, I was about to just yell, "Get out of my head!" You know.
Sorry.
I was going to say that, when it comes to horror, it is subjective. And, sometimes when I see people tweeting or asking that question, it's just a horror movie. It's like, shut up. We don't want to talk about that right now. But no, I think that's what's really cool when it comes to the horror genre, or just genres in general. Like, yeah, it could be like a mashup. Horror isn't just one kind of thing. So I think that it could be all of those things. It all depends on how you interpret it, and that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it, when you have a conversation with people like we're doing now. Look at us, we're all friends, having like a nice time.
I will say my expectations going in, I was assuming it would be a very, sociopolitic, like we were going to get slapped in the face with Get Out. So I was like, I'm ready. Let's do this. Aliens are colonizing Earth. I'm ready. And so my expectations, I realized afterwards, I had put him into this box of what I just assumed from Get Out to Us. And so my expectations were completely sidelined. And it actually took me a while to work through that because I thought it was going to be something else.
Yeah, agreed. I love how, I was telling a friend this, but the themes of the movie are actually very subtle. And, some people miss some of this stuff because, Peele doesn't lean into a lot of that. He does really, let me give you an example. Like people, I heard people say, well, what does the monkey have to do with anything? And, it's like, well, it's like, how did the monster die? The monster died because a giant balloon exploded inside of it. How did everybody die on that set? On the sitcom, a balloon exploded. So Peele is clearly using the monkey as some kind of metaphor. And, I was thinking about it some more, and with the cowboy stuff in the Old West, it's like, if you think about how certain groups of people were exploited in the Old West, blacks and Asians, and building railroads and towns and things off the backs of their labor and not really giving anything. I think Peele, and I don't want to get too deep into super themes right now, but I'm just, in terms of what Peele was saying, just and how it relates to this monkey that was being, I don't know, used for entertainment for its body and not necessarily its mind. And maybe that somehow was tied to the feast, them trying to sort of capitalize on the fact that this people would pay lots of money to see pictures and they could be on Oprah. There was some capitalism going on in there. So there was some themes that Jordan Peele was definitely weaving into this movie, but he was not slapping you in the face with it. I
think Stephen Yeun's story and Gordy's story are the catalyst of the entire movie. That is one of the most important parts of the film. I think it does a great job of showing. Well, I think that with the alien, do a great job of showing that there's a predator and prey, and that we have to remember that we're not the superior beings, whether it's through animals or aliens. Even with the cinematographer, he's watching, these videos of animals eating larger animals. And so there's a lot of I took away a lot of symbolism of don't fuck with nature, where you kind of are in the food chain, and respect, bigger beings out, whatever that may be. I found that to be one of the most interesting, and I think it all goes to when the Gordy massacre happens, which I think is just beautifully done.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you watch, Jupe watches this happen. He watches that, because of how Gordy is treated and how he's kind of, used for the pleasure of others, it causes the massacre. But then as he gets older, he falls victim to the spectacle. And then he does the same thing to this alien that that he literally watched, like, and then the alien reacts in the same way that Gordy does because he's he's got animal instincts, not human instincts. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's an interesting parallel. And as much as I'm not like, a diehard fan of this movie, I actually do love all the Gordy scenes. Like, that is, for me, when I saw people complaining about that, I was like, that was what your problem was? Like,
mm-hmm. I also think that the Steven Yeun's character, Duke, really shows us for the first time that you should not stare directly into the face of a predator.
Yeah.
And that is what ends up, that's what is another catalyst, because that's how OJ realizes that he can't stare. He he realizes that with the horses, because you don't stare a horse in the eye, you have to put your face down and be submissive and then look back. And throughout the film, you can watch him just doing that as a natural reaction. But he then, the reason that everyone's being taken away is because they're looking up, and he's the only one that is able to look down and help everyone.
I was going to say, when it comes to Jude, him and Gordy are kind of similar, as messed up as that sounds. Because, this was in the 90s, and, he's a young Asian actor young guy with a white family. And it's kind of like he's always like the blunt of the jokes, because I remember somebody was just like, oh, well, why didn't, Gordy attack him? Is because he felt like they were the same, spectacle type of thing, and it's really sad. But I remember even thinking back in the 90s, there were a lot of sitcom shows like that. It felt very much real. And even today, unfortunately, you still see that. So even when it comes to the main characters, when it comes to OJ and Angel, they are these minorities that are that's usually considered the underdog. You have, with OJ, he's a shy Black man. People feel like he's just like, whatever. If you remember on the set, no one was taking him seriously at all. With M, she is a queer Black woman, and people, once again, it's like the blunt of the jokes, type of thing. And then even when it comes to Angel, the same thing. And I can go into detail, but we know what's going on these days if you watch the news, unfortunately. And it's still happening, Just think about it, because now people have phones, so they're recording certain things.
Yeah.
So, I knew that, when it came to this movie, when I was saying earlier that I went in with an open mind. So I really did try to avoid, trailers and everything, even though I did watch something. It's like, no, but that poster alone, I felt like, okay, it's definitely going to be like Aliens. And I don't know if you guys remember this video. This is just like rabbit hole information, but there was this video once where this guy felt like there was like aliens in the sky, but it was really like these lights that were going around in the neighborhood, and he was screaming, aliens! No? Okay. Well, it made me think about that, like I felt like it was just going to be like Aliens. I just remember like just how great their marketing was for the film. I love the fact that majority of us, if not everyone, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
Nope literally stands for not of planet Earth.
Yeah, and people were saying that too,
So I was like, it's Aliens. It's Jordan Peele's Aliens. He's doing Aliens. And then I was like, I wanted humanoid aliens like attacking us versus like creature alien. But that's just me. Yeah. I would love to see him do his idea of that situation. Like, I was gonna say, have we ever seen where the alien is just, or the UFO is just the alien? In anything before this? Or has it always just been like UFO separate from an alien? I feel like there have been like movies where like the UFO itself is like bioorganic, like not as a creature, like, but it is also sort of living. I feel like I've seen that, but I can't think of what it was.
The Abyss had underwater UFO sort of bio. They were biological organisms, but they looked like light UFOs. They were underwater, so that was one. Did they also like shift into something else? Yeah, I think there were other versions where like, well, there was one where that was sort of water tentacle that they used for, eventually for Terminator 2 and the morphing stuff. But yeah, that was one movie that used that a little bit.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I also wanted to mention something about Gordy, and I liked how he was a bit of a riff on those old '80s sitcoms like Alf and also Small Wonder, the little robot girl. And there was a time in the '80s where it was cool to take these sort of sci-fi concepts and sort of turn them into a comedic thing and put them on a sitcom. And I thought that was great how he turned that on its head and said, okay, well, what if these things actually like turned on their masters, And I thought that was cool.
There's actually, I found out today, I don't know, I was reading something, because now I'm just obsessed with like learning everything about this movie. But there was actually a chimpanzee attack where people got like viciously mauled, and it was on a TV show.
Really?
And then I also realized, or I didn't realize, I'm not that smart, but Jordan Peele had put out like a video of like Gordy in space, whatever. And it's actually, from what I heard, referencing that time period where the space shuttle went up and everybody was watching it and exploded, because Gordy's parents, or
right,
they're astronauts. And I was like, what the fuck?
Right, yeah.
This man just is like layers upon layers upon layers.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there was
about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was Mork and Mindy, the old Robin Williams one.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. Now, again, this is something I didn't even think about until we started talking about it. That's why I love this movie, because it's a gift that keeps on giving. Because every time I go back and think about it, there's something else that I missed that I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that was something else too.
Okay, I take it back. I mean, I feel like it's a masterpiece. We just keep on getting information. Like,
I gotta say, one of my favorite things I realized after watching the movie yesterday, I was always kind of weird about the cinematographer. Like, I liked him. I got what he was doing, but there was always something that just like I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. And it's very quick when it happens, but it's when him and Angel are up getting ready to start filming. Mm-hmm. And he has a bottle of pills and he takes them, and I think he's dying. And he's wrapped in that black cloak, and then it's like, what's your last hurrah gonna be? You want that impossible shot. Right.
Mm-hmm. And then in the scene prior to that, he actually he talks about the dream you never wake up from.
Yes.
So, go ahead. No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I was going to piggyback off of that. I said, oh, yeah, definitely. I felt that way after, he was already taken away. Because at first I'm thinking, like, was he running away with the footage?
Yeah.
But then, it's like, well, why would he do that? But then it all just made sense, And then I remember there were people that were saying that, that doesn't make any sense. Why would he sacrifice himself? But it's kind of like what he said with getting like that perfect shot type of thing,
And he
I don't know. I think that's kind of
like, like, you're going to be okay. Like, don't worry, you'll be fine. Like, it was just, it's very much a parting, like,
morbidly beautiful.
Yeah. And I like really sat with it, and I was like, I need to talk to people about this.
I like that actor a lot, though. Like, he's not in like a ton of stuff that I've seen, but I feel like every time I've seen him, I'm like, oh, I know who that guy is. Like, yeah. When we watched it, my husband's a huge fan of The Crow. Like, that was like one of his like formative high school movies. The gothy look, had hair down to his butt. It was his thing. So we're watching it. And we're like in the theater, and I'm like, that's the guy from The Crow. And it was so like, I was so excited that I recognized him, and he was like.
Well, here's
I'm trying not to overtake this conversation, by the way. I just have so much to say, and nobody to
Yeah, because I'm like, I know that so many people really love this movie, and I was not like, I don't want to take away from people. Like, I'm just like this is one of those few moments where, like, on Twitter, I'm just like, nope, I'm not saying a damn word. Like, I'm keeping my thoughts to myself on this one. Let people enjoy this one. This is not my, like...
It, though. I mean, if people are able to respect it, like, I think it's important to have both sides of a coin.
Right.
And with folks like you who are rational, normal human beings, yes, I agree. However, if I said anything outside of it's a masterpiece on Twitter, people would be like, you don't understand it. You're stupid. You just don't get it. You're just a girl.
No, sadly.
Excuse me?
Even though it's funny, sadly, yeah, I've seen that actually, like on Twitter. But it's unfortunate because I love hearing other people's takes on the movie. Like if there's something about it that didn't sit right with you, I want to know. Not that I'm like writing an essay. I'm nosy, and I just kind of want to, you know what I mean? Just kind of.
Yeah, I just don't want to be lumped with the bros who are like, it was dumb. It was a stupid, terrible movie. Because I don't feel that way. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's just not a Sarah movie, as I always say. Like, it's not for me. Like, it just didn't. Too sci-fi. That's where it boils down.
I can see that. Yeah.
I think there's a distinct difference between like horror sci-fi people not being about it, but that are actually like really involved in knowing about horror, knowing about sci-fi, knowing the people involved in the film, and then you're like mainstream critics who just aren't going to do any type of research because most aren't, and I've seen a lot of that, specifically by white men.
Oh man.
I'm just like, please be quiet.
We're just not going to talk about them.
But I think it's important to have both sides of the coin. I think it's, I've seen online people don't like it, and I think it's interesting to see why. Mm-hmm. Is there something I may have missed? Is there something I can tell them that they may have missed? Like, I think it brings about a conversation.
Yeah, I think in this case of this movie, for me personally, it's 100% subjective. It has nothing to do with the quality of the film. It has everything to do with the things I like in film. Mm-hmm. And so I recognize that. And I feel like that's something that, like, when watching films, and the more that I watch horror especially, I have learned to be really, like, critical and step back before I say, like, oh, this movie was, like, a hot mess, or this was garbage. Before, like, I'm like, wait, did I just not like it? Or was this just a really poorly put together movie? Like, I try to be more conscious of that before I vocalize nowadays. Like, yeah,
there's a big difference between, I liked it and it's a good movie. I like a lot of bad movies. There's definitely an objective.
Yoga hosers.
There's an objective way you can look at movies, like you would look at a painting or something. And go, okay, so there's certain aesthetic elements that can't be denied. Like The Godfather's not a bad movie. You can not like it, that doesn't mean it's bad. And similarly, just because it's just like, it's fine. Like, we all have our tastes and stuff. Movies are objective, but they're also subjective. That's what's so great about it.
Right.
Yeah. And I was going to say something about the cinematographer character. Speaking of his whole sort of fatalistic attitude about what was going to happen to him, right before, I think they're at the dinner table and they're all kind of going, well, we're going to do this thing. And then he starts talking about this one-horned flying purple people eater, the song. And the way he talks, he does it in a very slow, methodical fashion. At the time I was watching, I didn't understand that. And I went back and saw it again. And I was like, speaking of Jaws, this is the Quint speech about the USS's in Indianapolis. This is Peele's take on that. Because Quint, in that movie, he dies in some of the same ways that he talks about the men died in this, on this mission. And then when the cinematographer character is talking about the one-eyed purple people eater, he's not outright saying it, but the way he's talking, the way he's speaking, it's almost like he knows that this is going to be his last hurrah. And then when he's taking the pills, that's another subtle thing that lets you know that, he's probably not going to survive this. So the great thing about this movie that I loved was Peele. It's almost like there were so many things that are so subtle that are driving the narrative. They're not overdone. He doesn't beat you over the head with them, but there's so many subtle moments like that.
That cinematographer did not give 1-0 fuck. He was just like, I'm going to do this. It was kind of impressive.
Mm-hmm.
He did not care. I guess if you're going to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go the biggest way you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of like other subtle things, I liked the Keke Palmer character and how, it was like, she's a black lesbian, but you weren't beaten over the head with it. It was like she goes to the store with them. They go to Fry's, and then there's there's this shot, this tracking shot, and this woman, you barely see her. This woman walks by, and she says, "Hey, how you doing? You look cute," or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, I bet she's got a big house," And it's like, "Oh, okay." So, and then she's like, something about therapy, and she's like, she bangs her therapist every once in a while. So it was like, okay, we know her deal, but she's not like preaching it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
She's just
it wasn't something. It was just her being versus it being the point of the story,
right.
which was nice to see. Like, it normalizes it. Like it's not trying to be showy in how it presented itself, like that kind of story element. It just was, like
natural.
Everyday life. Like it's just a part of life.
She's allowed to exist without it being like used against her, her queerness.
Right.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I like the fact that, again, just kind of bouncing off of what everyone said, that it wasn't mentioned like all the time. I will say, though, when she did say that the woman was pretty in the store, I wish I were that woman. Like, I want her to tell me that.
Any of them, I would lay down my life for Angela.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the brilliance of that shot. The shot is a tracking shot, so when the woman's walking the other direction, it's so fast, you can put yourself in the place of her.
Okay, it's me. That was me.
So it's a great shot. So because it makes you participate in the movie. And and I love Keith David, but I just hate the fact that he was barely in it. I wanted him in it more. I understood he had to die, but it was like, oh, I want more Keith David.
Apparently, there's a 3.5-hour director's cut.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's what I recently heard. And then they had to cut it down because I also think Barbie, I can't pronounce her last name. I think she was supposed to have a bigger role in it, just from what I saw on like the press side. And then she has 3 lines. And so I feel like he has a much more, like, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, a bigger show, and they just had to like cut it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting because generally speaking, I am not pro long movie. Like I hate long movies. I'm so over it. Like I don't know who in Hollywood decided that every single movie now has to be 2+ hours. Like I don't know if they're trying to give us like more bang for the buck or what, but like I miss the days of a good like 80 to 90 minute movie. Like
I talk about this all the time, and I'm like I think I love Christopher Nolan, but I call it Christopher Nolan syndrome because I think everybody in Hollywood, once he did the Dark Knight, he did the ultimate sort of prestige movie meets comic book movie. It's what everybody wants, and everybody wants to win an Oscar too. So it's like we got to make long movies so that we'll be respected. You know what I mean? It's like no, just make a movie and make something that works. And it just you can do that in 90 minutes. You can do it in an hour and 45 minutes. But everything has to be like 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
But that being said, I would actually like to see a longer director's cut.
Oh, for sure.
Because of this. Because I'd be interested if Jordan Peele being able to flesh out the story more would give me more that I would be like, oh, okay, I like that better. Maybe like as it was cut, it feels a lot like Jaws, where if, like 3 hours, if he had more ability to tell more story, maybe some of those like differentiating elements would have been in there that I could have been like, oh, okay, this is a lot different for me now.
I will say I initially thought that until I rewatched it.
Okay. And
it's actually all fleshed out.
I do have a question for everyone. I'm just nosy again. But I'm curious to know, like, what were your thoughts on the length of the movie? Like, how did you feel watching it? Did you feel that it was dragging? Because when I watched it, for me, it just kind of it flowed, like it just flew by, but I've been hearing from some people, they found like some parts like dragged, like they felt there was too much dialogue and not enough like action happening type of stuff,
I think one of the things when I first watched it, but again, understood better on the second time, was I think having those chapters was a little jarring at times. I think the way it broke stuff up, because there's so much going on in each chapter, it was hard to not follow along, but if you jagged, at times the movie did kind of feel like it was taking longer than it needed to in some aspects. But again, once I rewatched it and had an understanding of what I was seeing, then it was so weird. It all lined up, and I didn't feel any dragging. I didn't feel like they were taking too much time on one aspect or another, and it just flowed. Like it all made sense.
I don't think I found anything past my own personal, like, oh my God, this is 2 hours. I need this to like be like shorter. Like nothing about the movie itself was like, okay, this is boring. Okay, it's dragging. I just don't like a 2-hour movie. Like for me, I'm the queen of a 60 to 70 minute movie. If you can get me that short period and get that movie done, I'm forever yours. So I'm kind of biased in just my personal tastes with movies, but there was nothing about this one that where I was like, okay, looking at my, my Fitbit, like, okay, is it like, how long have we been watching this already? Like I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, and to your point, I was very similar. I just was kind of like, I don't understand how they're breaking these apart and why one is shorter and the other is longer. And
Yeah, I like I said before, when I first saw it, the third act, it was a little clunky to me until I saw it again. And when I saw it again, I realized that it seemed a little clunky because the way he was doing it was not the sort of typical action thing. It was he was setting certain things up and paying them off in a different way. So once I got on board with that, it was fine. Yeah, no, I had no problems with the length. I do hate super long movies. I mean, it depends on the movie. I mean, if it's a great movie, it's a great movie. I love The Irishman. It's super long, but I don't want to watch it all the time. But I thought it was perfect length. Same with Goodfellas and Casino and all that stuff. All the Scorsese movies that are really long. But most I find a lot, especially the Marvel movies, that 2.5 hours and 3 hours, and it's like
it was good for Avengers. Like that was it. It was like the culmination of like over a decade. I get it. That needed to be 2 hours. That did not mean that every single one after needed to be 2.5 hours long. Like I'm over it. Like
I would straight up watch a 5-hour Ari Aster movie and not be upset about it. That's like the exception to the rule. Like if you were to be like, I have a 4-hour movie, I'd be like, first one signed up. A24 wants to make 4-hour movies, I'll be there. Marvel wants to do it, I'd rather shoot myself in the face.
I would be down if there was an intermission. I think intermissions should come in.
I agree.
Because then you can sort of decompress, you can talk about it. You don't. It's almost like you'd be watching 2 episodes of a TV show. You know what I'm saying? Like one, an hour. Because I do that now with Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu, and it's like we're so used to watching these large chunks of time, but the fact that they're broken up makes them more tolerable.
And that's why I like watching with like Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that one's almost 3 hours. And so when I initially saw that, I was like, oh God, here we go. And that just flew by. Like it never, and eventually, when I got kind of what Carol was saying, once I got on board with what was happening the second time, like it just flew by. And both those movies are so long, but I think it's maybe also like the pacing and being engaged in the story. And if you're not, then it makes it even harder.
Yeah, I had this saying that like you can make a 90-minute movie feel like 3 hours if you pace it wrong.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have definitely seen some like festival movies where it's like I go in and I'm like, oh, it's only 80 minutes, awesome, and then I'm like, this is the longest 80 minutes of my entire life. Like I still have I'll look at my watch and I'll be like, I still have 50 minutes of this movie. Yeah, I get it.
Rewatched Orphan the other day, and that movie's almost 2 hours.
And I had like, is it?
Yeah, it's like an hour and like 53 minutes or something, and it was like pretty fast. I mean, that movie's wild. I hadn't watched it in like a decade. That movie's wild.
It is.
But yeah, it's almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I was going to ask, where does this fall for y'all in terms of his filmography? If you have, I don't like ranking things, but just for the sake of conversation, I mean, where does this rank for you in terms of his 3 movies?
I mean, I'll go first because I think everyone knows my answer. It's third for me. Like, I think Get Out is one of the best movies of the last like decade. So there was no way that was gonna, well, I say decade, meaning the last 10 years, not literal decade, because we're in a new decade. But for me, like, it's one of the best horror movies that's ever been made. So to me, I don't know that he will ever top it for me personally. Like, that movie, and it could have been the experience I had seeing it in the theater, because I saw it in a screening and people were so into that movie. Like, you could hear gasps and like, you know, different reactions at different points of the movies, and it was incredible. Us is probably obviously number 2. I didn't love it as much as I liked Get Out, but I did like it more than I liked Nope. But again, sci-fi. It was bound to not be my favorite.
I don't know. I again, the first time I watched it, well, it's tough because it's vastly different from his other 2 films, so it's hard to like put it in a ranking. I have to rewatch Get Out because I really felt like after watching Nope a second time that this actually might be like his masterpiece, which throws me for a complete loop because I think Get Out is his masterpiece. Mm-hmm. So now I need to like rewatch everything and be like, are they all masterpieces? I mean, at this point, had I not rewatched Nope, it would probably fall. I don't even know, because people asked me and I still couldn't give an answer because it's just unlike it's one original IP, so it's hard. So are his other 2. So it's like, it's hard. They're all, but I think now, having watched it the second time, I would definitely say I have to watch Get Out again and see what happens.
That is such a hard question because, you know, they're all like so good, obviously for different reasons. And it depends on my mood, you know, so it could also change. But I'm going to say, Us. Nope. Get Out.
Wow.
Okay.
I want to read all about that.
I would actually love to like see an article about that. I want to be nosy now. Like, I want to see that breakdown because like
I need my life. When it comes to Us, to me, I found it so creepy. You know, that was one to me. It just really stuck with me for a long time. And then obviously we know the twist, and it's just like, that's really unsettling. That little boy has to live with that for the rest of his life. Can you imagine someone who is your mother? Like, girl, who are you? You know what I mean? He's been living a lie. And then just like even how it played out, like the fight between the 2, and it was like a ballet dance, you know, and then the rabbits. What's up with the rabbits? You know, there's just so much stuff with that, you know. And then
I'm gonna have to watch that one again too.
Yeah, I think I definitely need to revisit that one.
That escalator scene going down that escalator, like, it really is chilling because, and I remember people saying, well, why would a little girl go down there? Because little kids are nosy. I would have went down there.
I would have.
You know, and that's what I mean. Like, that's just like a whole world. That's just like, that's crazy. So the point is, it stuck with me. Then with Nope to me felt, again, very refreshing. You know, I don't really know what I was expecting. I was expecting aliens, but again, the cinematography, I was blown away. I always complain how I live out in the middle of nowhere. I'm proud that I live out in the middle of nowhere now because of that movie. Like, just the way everything tied together. Get Out is freaking perfection. It is. See, that's why I said it's hard. Ask me tomorrow. It might change.
You actually brought up a good point, because one of the things I loved about Nope was that how it's so vast, but also very isolating. Mm-hmm. And it's like such beautiful cinematography of the mountains, and just, it's so stunning until you realize if something seriously goes wrong, which obviously does, like, you're isolated from everyone. And that's terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Not for you. I don't want you to be isolated from anyone.
No. Well, I mean, my neighbor is not that far. I mean, I could make it. But before, it's like I would complain because my backyard, there's like some woods back there. I never go out there. But point is, I feel like when you think about where they live, it's just kind of like, how can you even get outside? There's no way. You can't even make it to your car. You can't run to a neighbor's, you know? And it's just like, who's going to believe you type of situation, you know? So, and then again, we talked about it, but with all his movies, there's just so much layering. And again, it kind of depends. Like, seriously, if you were to ask me this like next week, I feel like my ranking could change.
I think all three of them are in their own way perfect. And to your point, it kind of just matters what.
Yeah, it's all completely subjective. Like,
or mood, or I can't give. I don't think I can give a ranking because I have to watch all of them back to back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. Like my top 10 rankings change all the time. They change every year because it's the thing. When you grow up, you like certain movies a certain way. And when you grow up, you look at them differently. You go, I don't know why I like that movie, or I like it more, or I like it less, or whatever. So as I change and mature, whatever you want to call it, get different perspective on things, my top 10 rankings change. So right now, when I first saw it, I would have put Nope. I would have put Get Out first. I would have put probably Us second and then Nope third. But then when I saw it again, I would have definitely put Nope first, Get Out second, and then Us third. So
y'all are really making me want to go see this again.
Gotta go watch it
because I feel like now I'm like, what the hell did I miss? Maybe it was because I saw it at 10:15 at night and I was just sleepy. Like maybe that's my problem. Like maybe I was just like not in it at the time. Like daytime showing.
To Zena's point about like there's just so much information you're taking in that first time. There's a chimpanzee, horses are in the air. Like, is this an alien or a UFO? Why is Stephen Yeun running a roadside attraction in the middle of nowhere? Like, there's just so much information and it's hard to. And then afterwards, you're like, what does this even all mean? It's easier to be like, it didn't really work. And I get that because that's how I was feeling towards the end, and it really was a second rewatch, knowing everything that I just watched and then picking up all the breadcrumbs he left, which ties it all together.
Yeah, the second time I watched it, I totally had the same thought. I was like, oh, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. And it's all sort of perfectly sort of structured. And yeah, like, it's one of those movies I think that really grows on you. I'm not saying it will, but I think it's worth a rewatch for sure.
Like, I didn't even notice the first time all the references to like reflectors and how that is shown at the beginning of the movie with the horse and that whatever that circle thing is.
Oh, yeah.
You see him working on his own. And then when he's doing the little, horse riding away from the alien, he has reflectors on the back of his hood, and then the TMZ driver has a reflective hood. And so, the alien, and it's all with eyes. That's how he comes and eats you. And I'm just like, this is mind blowing.
I was just going to say, like, to you, Sarah, like, obviously, like, no pressure, like, live your life. But like, because I'm kind of like the opposite in a way. Like, I only watched it once, and I want to wait to watch it again. Like, I still feel like I need more time, to kind of process. But then at the same time, in the past, there has been movies that I've watched. I went to the theaters. I checked it out. I wasn't a fan. Like My Soul to Take, when it first came out, I checked it out. I was like, hate it, But then I rewatched it a couple of years ago. Loved it. Same thing with Trick or Treat. And I'm actually waiting to.
That reaction.
I know, but that was the first time. Shannon, no.
I feel like we just saw the start of World War III. Like, that was Shannon's villain origin story right there.
I'm so sorry. I was like, what is happening? Right around the corner, there's a giant museum of Trick or Treat.
That's so
behind me is a giant. My full-size trick-or-treat man, Sam, is right next to me. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
No, that's how it was. When I first checked it out, it just wasn't hitting for me, And then I was like, I'm going to wait a couple of years. I rewatched it, and it's just like, what was I thinking? That movie's everything. It's like, that's a must-watch every Halloween. And Sam.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of waiting to rewatch Evil Dead, like the newer version, because I wasn't really feeling that one.
I've rewatched that one and I still can't get on board with it. I just, that one is not, I agree with you. That one just didn't work.
Like for me,
Mm-mm.
but I know people who are like diehard fans.
Same.
And it's like, I can see why you like it, but it just wasn't for me. And you know what happens.
I'm also a huge fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and I will literally die on that hill. Like, I will.
I mean, if we're talking
die
about
on that
hills,
hill.
if we're talking about hills to die on, have we not seen me defending Texas Chainsaw 3D and Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2? I am all
That
about
is the classic.
I am all about defending the movies that apparently every single person on Earth hates, because that's just me.
And sometimes it's the mood we watch movies too. Because I watched a movie and I was in like just a shitty mood, and I was like, "This is dumb." And then I rewatched it when I was in a better space, and I was like, "Oh, this is, you know, whatever, life changing or funny or whatever."
Yeah.
No, there's not enough. There's not enough liquor in the world to get me to like Blair Witch Book of Shadows.
Listen,
I tried.
No, you have to watch it with me so I can point out all of the little details that everybody who's not a diehard ridicu Blair Witch fan like I am. I mean, there's literally in the corner when the guy is like, "I'm finished here," and he's supposed to be like Rustin Parr. In the corner, his tools are in the shape of a stick man, and nobody picks that up.
listen, I am a pretentious art house horror fan, like 150%, and I like Book of Shadows.
Okay, all right. Since we're mentioning things, I always get like a lot of. I have to. Okay, first one, like with the recent one, kind of like what Shannon mentioned, like when you watch something and you're not in a great mood. But it was kind of the opposite for me. I was having like a terrible like weekend, like everything was going wrong. And I remember when the new Texas Chainsaw movie came out, I had so much fun with it.
I love that movie.
The one that came out this year.
Yeah, the one on
I
Netflix.
love that one.
It was so fun. I literally was like, what did y'all think was gonna happen? It's old man Leatherface. Like, did you go in thinking this was gonna be Midsummer? Because,
have you watched any of the other Texas Chainsaw movies?
That bus massacre scene was it was so good. I refuse to believe that people don't like that movie.
Exactly.
I had so much fun.
I literally got so excited that people didn't like it because it meant Fright Rags put all the shirts on clearance, and I got like 2 shirts from it for like $10, and I was like, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a franchise. It is easily my favorite major franchise. I actually went through and rated all the movies, and between it and Saw, those are like my highest rated overall franchises, like by rating.
It's a good time. And then the other one is, regardless of what people try to say, I don't care. Children of the Corn rocks my world. I have a love-hate relationship with Urban Harvest for some reason, but I can't keep my eyes off of it. And if there's a new, Children of the Corn movie, like the one that they mentioned that was filmed like 2-3 years ago, I don't care. I'm going to go see it. So it's just like, it's one of those situations where it's just like, when I tell people, are you like Children of the Corn? I do. It's chaos. It's unhinged. We need that in our lives.
We are all allowed to have fandoms that are not popular. Thank you.
I like my genre niche is like the most traumatic horror movie I can possibly find. Like everything, I went on like I don't know, it was during COVID and I was like, everyone's dying. So I went on like this weird path of watching to see if I could finally find my limit. If there would be a limit, and I found it. Yeah. Australian horror can fuck off.
Wait, was it that one, the driving home at night or driving home in the dark or whatever that was? I forget the title.
What? Wait, what?
Oh no! The title of that movie, was it Driving Home in the Dark? Or
yeah, something like that.
No, it wasn't that one. It's called. And kids, don't look this up and don't watch it. It's the Snowtown Murders. Called Snowtown, and it's about a 2-hour-long movie. 10 minutes in, was not sure if I could finish it. And I forced myself to finish it. And I was like, we'll never, ever watch that. It's almost, again, near perfect film. Never watch it again. It's based off of a real story that happened in the Australian outback. Don't ever go to the Australian outback. I'm actually terrified of Australia. So.
That makes
But no, don't watch that movie. It's
Sorry.
incredibly traumatizing.
Wow. Okay. Good. I mean, I appreciate it. I have friends who like, I think Shannon, you've even done this. Like, I can't do dog death in movies. And Shannon saw, I forget what movie it was. It was like a Tom Holland movie, I think. I can never remember the name of this movie. It's like Chaos something or other, Chaos Walking or something weird.
I didn't see that one. But I
And
know
you
which
sent
one you're
me
talking about.
you sent me a text and you were like, "Do not watch this. There is a dog death that will destroy you. Don't do it." And I was like, "Okay."
While I was watching Nope for the second time, I was like, I told so many people there were no animal deaths. Like, straight up told people no horses died, like, no animals died in this movie. And so I'm sitting there like, okay, I obviously smoked too much weed because what the fuck am I talking about? So to anybody watching this that I told there are no animal deaths, I'm very sorry.
I will say though that the animal deaths in Nope were as tastefully as an animal death can be.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty sensitive to animal death. Like, you can kill as many humans and children in movies as you want, and I don't usually like bat an eye. But the second any animal is in danger, I'm like, nope, I'm freaking out. Unless it looks super fake. Like Benny Loves You, like that dog death, I was just like laughing my ass off. Reanimator, the cat looks so much like a fake something. But I feel like this one, like, I didn't even pick up on that. Like, I agree with you. Like, if someone had asked me, I would have been like, no, not really. I mean...
Well, I think one of them's in, like, that tornado, like, you know...
Yeah, nothing feels gratuitous or, like, put in just for a shock value, which I feel like most animal death in films are. Like, people just throw it in to show you how, like, evil someone is or how bad it is. And I'm like, you could do that without killing the dog, thanks.
Actually, I would ask you guys, do you remember when... You remember. We all just watched it. Jupe and the gang get, sucked up, and then they're in whatever... Was that an animal? Was that a horse? It looked like a heart at first. Like, I don't know how to
I
explain
thought
it.
that was like the internals of the beast. I mean,
Okay,
yeah,
so-
Yeah.
I figured that might have been part of the digestive system or something.
Yeah.
Or
I thought it looked like a horse's head.
I feel like there was like an animal, like there was like a skull or something in there. I feel like I remember seeing, but again, it wasn't something that was so like graphic or shocking that I was like traumatized by it. So it didn't stick. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I would probably say the same thing. I'd be like, no, there's no animal death.
Speaking of
That's my excuse,
traumatizing-
everyone. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of traumatizing, I'm just curious, was there like a scene that kind of like stuck with you kind of thing? Living your head rent free?
For me, it was definitely the Gordy stuff. That whole thing was, that the theater was completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. It was just weirdly like, I don't know. And then they do almost the fist bump, but then he gets shot.
That scene, oh my God. I literally just I think I audibly gasped at that moment. I was just like,
Yeah.
because animal death. That's right, animal death. There you go.
Yeah, that's another one. But that's the thing. It happens so quick, and you don't really see it, but you can hear the sound of the gun.
And because it's a chimpanzee, it's almost humanoid in a way, so it felt like a human being shot in the head.
And you can
dressed
see
in a
him,
sweater too.
and you can see him shift from being like, rabid, wanting to protect himself, to then he realizes kind of what he's done. So it makes it even and then he connects with
Mm-hmm.
Ricky, and then you're about to see the fist bump.
And I also think, speaking of that scene, also in terms of not looking at him, there is a tablecloth cover over his face, so when he's about to fist bump, he's not looking at Gordy. And so I wonder if that had anything to also kind of, with the foreshadowing of don't look at the creature, because he's not looking at Gordy. He's looking at the tablecloth, and then it's shielding him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, the moment when he's in the stable and I don't like anything that moves in a way it should not move. And they did such a good job of framing that scene. And even when he has his like phone up and he's about to capture it, the slow move of the head, but then seeing it also in the camera of the phone, I thought was done just so well. And outside of that, I think what stuck with me most was Ricky's story. I think it's one of the foundations of the film. I think there's a lot of, of course, there's trauma. There's a lot of trauma there. I think he's trying to work through that trauma and trying to, not that I'm saying Jupiter's claim is him trying to, claim to fame, but, I think he's trying to recapture that. And so his story really, stuck with me.
I think for me, the scene when the blood was coming down the house, because it was just so settled, like it wasn't even anything like crazy in your face, and there's already all this chaotic stuff that's happening, and what could you do in that moment but wait for it to be over? Then when you think about it, where all that blood like came from type of thing, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like it's that's terrifying, and I loved it in the worst way, because it's just kind of like, I would not survive that. I know it's like, oh, I'm a real queen of horror. No, I would die. I would probably have a heart attack, and I'm cool with that. That it happens. Like, imagine just blood dripping down your windows. Like, ooh.
Oh, and see, I watch enough like gastro horror cannibalism stuff that I'm like, the aliens pooping on the house. Like, that was literally where my brain went in that moment. It's supposed to be this creepy moment, and I leaned into my husband, and I'm like, is the alien pooping on their house now? Like, is that what we're seeing here? And my husband, like, he looks at me and he's like, I think so. Like, both of us are just like, but of course I think of like food bodily function because I watch so much food horror. I'm like, and I just, not too long ago watched Flux Gourmet, which is all about farting and pooping, and
that's the whole movie.
That was not horror enough for me. I was very like,
I will say the other scene that really got me, though, was when Daniel Kaluuya's in the truck and he's surrounded by it. And, I love when he says nope when he's doing the camera of the aliens, but there's, he's just like, fuck that. And I was lucky enough to actually chat with him briefly, and my question was every movie I see you in, you're just so cool, calm, and collected. How would that, I would never be that. If there was a creature over my car that, just spewed blood all over my house, I would have lost my mind. I would have, spiraled into insanity. And just in real life, he's like that, too. He's just fucking chill. And I'm like, yeah, I guess aliens and whatever else doesn't bother you. And I just thought that was really powerful in terms of keeping your shit together when it's absolute chaos. And what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I like, how they, because, one of my pet peeves in some certain horror movies is, why do the people obviously stick around when the house is haunted or whatever. A lot of movies do a good job of sort of explaining that. But in this movie, it's great because it's like nope, because he's like nope, but then he's like, okay, the motivation becomes we want to get this on, we want to capture it on camera so people can actually see it, and so that we can actually have a thriving whatever, because the business is failing, because the dad's gone, we don't have is this farm going to last very long? So I thought the motivation for that was great, you know what I mean? And again, it's Peele just commenting on horror movies, you know what I mean? Commenting on stuff he's seen, he's probably been dissatisfied with, and he wants to change it up a little bit. And that's why the same thing with Get Out, Us. I mean, again, it's another, I just wonder what he can do now to keep going. What can he do next?
To do aquatic horror.
Ooh, yeah.
Hell yeah.
I would like to request that we do an octopus movie or something that's not a shark.
Mermaids.
Oh, hell yeah. 100%.
Killer mermaids, sirens would be cool.
Yes.
Yeah, one of those giant squid-like things. He could do Cthulhu, and I would be thrilled. Like, take on a Lovecraftian. Oh my god!
I just want something that isn't a shark for aquatic horror. Like, I love a good shark movie, don't get me wrong, but I want to see more killer sea creatures than sharks. Like, there's a lot out there that could like fuck us up. Like,
Hippos are very dangerous.
how about killer seals? Like, come on, those things are mean. Have you ever watched them chase a penguin? Like,
What about piranhas? Like, bring those back. They're ugly and they're mean.
I mean, I feel like they tried to.
Then we have to bring back anacondas.
Hell yeah.
Do an anaconda movie.
Definitely a guilty pleasure.
Okay, I think we should have a petition for Jordan Peele's Anaconda.
He needs to do a creature feature.
We'll put it in the link below the movie.
Thank you.
We
Petition
can all
for
be victims in it.
Yeah, I would give. That's actually a dream of mine. Like, since I started my site, was I have absolutely zero desire to ever act ever in my entire life. Don't want to do it. Don't care for it. I don't do my site for anything other than my love of horror. Oh, can somebody just kill me? It could be somebody that doesn't like me. It could be somebody that loves me. Just annihilate me. Like, I can be in the background, decapitate me. I just want to know what it's like. Anyway, sorry, you can edit that out.
I just want to be like cannibalized in a film. It's cool. Like, head mold, like my head on a chopping block. It'd be cool. I'd be down.
I want to be that character that's oblivious about everything. Piranhas would still go in the water anyway,
And you would survive. Yeah. Because that's how sometimes it goes. They're the ones that, like...
Yeah, no, we don't need any more brothers dying in horror movies, so I'm good. So we're coming to the end of this roundtable. I just want to get some final thoughts from y'all about the movie before we head out. Any final words, final parting gifts?
I was just going to say, again, I had a lot of fun with the movie. It's definitely, again, I keep saying it, refreshing. It's a fun movie. It's a fun time. I think that if you haven't checked it out, but for some reason you watch this, you should still check it out. It's definitely worth it. And honestly, like, I'm really looking forward to owning it.
Yeah, I thought, to piggyback off of you, obviously refreshing. I think it's a movie that begs to be dissected over and over and over and over and over again, which is, I think it challenges the viewer. I think it's engaging. It's a movie that I think personally will keep people on their toes as they try to put all these puzzle pieces together. So I think it's an exciting film. That's all there is to say. And to try to see it multiple times, if possible.
Yeah, I think I'm actually glad that I participated in this because, like, I got, like, that positive, like, reinforcement, like, so I'm like, maybe I do need to, like, give this another shot. Like, don't write it off. Like, I feel like that was my biggest takeaway is, like, don't just write it off as, like, oh, it's a good movie, but not for me. Like, I definitely, like, want to revisit it now and see, like, if it, like, hits better for me on a second viewing. Because I feel like maybe it will. Like, just based off of, like, what everybody here has said, like, I feel like maybe that second viewing will, clinch it.
And wait a while, kind of like what Nina was saying. Like,
yeah.
Because then you'll see it won't be in... Like, you won't remember all the steps that you already saw. And I'm really glad that I was able to watch it once and then weeks later watch it again because it just made the whole experience better.
Yeah, I would, exactly. And you'd be away from the hype too, so you wouldn't have that sort of
exactly
any pressure. I thought it was a great movie. I think that, this kind of cements, I mean, he was already a genius maker with Get Out and Us, but I think at this point, you can't really deny that he's just an amazing new voice in the genre space. And I think with this movie, he's branching out a little bit, and I think that's cool. I kind of want to see. I love that he's doing horror, but I like horror directors and really just genre directors who do other genres. And I really want to see what he does next. I mean, I hope it's as good as Nope, and I thought Nope was a great film. I can't wait to see it again. So that concludes the roundtable for Nope. I hope you all had a good time. We will put the socials for all of y'all in the description below the video, so check them out. And I really appreciate you coming by and taking the time to talk about Note.
I just want to say thank you so much for having us come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was an amazing experience to be able to talk to you guys. You did such a great job. So thank you for putting this
Thank
together.
you. It was,
Thank you
it
so
was very
much.
awesome.
Really
I love the
appreciate
fact that I was able to go down many rabbit holes and I didn't get kicked out. So thank you very much.
And you learned about Jaws the Revenge.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it.
Well, we might do a Jaws Revenge roundtable. We'll see if.
Oh my God.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank y'all. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Anytime.
Awesome.